Hi, I'm sharing this information because the U.S. government is using our tax dollars to assist in the ongoing genocide and displacement of the Palestinian people in Gaza, and time is running out for them. I will split this information up into 3 videos. This part is a little of the history going back to the start of the Zionist movement in the late 1880s until just before the current war. I'm not an expert, but just trying to get people caught up somewhat who know very little about the conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict traces back to the late 19th century when the Zionist movement began. Zionists sought to establish a homeland for the Jewish people due to ongoing exclusion and persecution. They set their sights on the area of the Ottoman-controlled Palestine, a region roughly corresponding to the land of Israel in Jewish tradition. There were no clear-cut definitions of the geographical and territorial limits of the area at the time. Today, Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories are a landmass of about 8,000 square miles, including the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The area is bordered by Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. After the Ottoman Empire fell at the end of World War I, the League of Nations gave Britain power to administer Palestine. In 1917, British government issued the Balfour Declaration, which was a commitment to establish a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Throughout history, Jews, Arabs, and Christians have occupied that region together. At the time the Zionist movement began, Jews had not been the majority population in the area for nearly 2 millennia. They made up less than 8% of the population at this time, contrasted with Arabs who made up over 80%. Starting in the early 1880s, the Zionists started to migrate to Palestine, increasing the Jewish population in the region to about 32% by the end of World War II. British rule and Arab efforts to prevent Jewish migration led to ongoing conflict and violence. Anti-Western sentiment grew as Arab nationalists centralized themselves around the newfound Palestine cause, promoting the view that Zionism posed an existential threat to the territorial integrity and political status quo of the entire region. One Arab uprising that lasted from 1936 to 1939 sought independence from British colonial rule and the end of British support for Zionism, including Jewish immigration and land sales to Jews. The uprising occurred during a peak in the influx of European Jewish immigrants and with the growing plight of the rural laborers rendered landless and displaced. In the aftermath of the Holocaust, due to international pressure, the goal of establishing an official Jewish state intensified. The United Nations attempted to establish a partition plan for Palestine through Resolution 181. Jewish organizations collaborated with the committee on the plan, while Palestinian Arab leadership boycotted it. The plan would have given the Arab state 43% of the territory and the Jewish state 57%. The Arabs rejected the plan partly because it gave the majority of the land to the Jews, even though the Arab population was double the size of the Jewish population and owned most of the territory. The Arabs also felt any form of territorial division violated the principles of national self-determination in the UN Charter. In 1947, a civil war broke out to stop the implementation of the resolution. After much violence and conflict, on March 14, 1948, the United Nations agreed to the establishment of a Jewish state and issued the Israeli Declaration of Independence. No borders were defined in the declaration. At that time, when the British administration mandate ended, the conflict intensified, and the Arab states of Egypt, Transjordan, Iraq, and Syria joined the fight, resulting in the Arab-Israeli War of 1948. The 1949 armistice agreements between Israel and Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria formally ended the 1948 war. The agreement demarcated the separation Arab-controlled territory from Israel. By the end of the war, the State of Israel controlled all of the area that the UN had proposed for a Jewish state, as well as almost 60% of the area proposed for an Arab state. Throughout the years before and since the established state, the League of Nations and then the United Nations had hoped to find a solution to the Palestine question, which is how to establish a fair and peaceful arrangement in the region between the Jews and the Palestinians. This question has still not been answered. The establishment of Israel and the war that followed and preceded it, and the mass migration of Jews from many parts of the globe over the past century or more, has changed the population in a drastic way, with Jews now making up over 70%. So a Western world power gave legitimacy to the Jewish state without ensuring the safety and longevity of those that had been living in the region for centuries. There was bound to be conflict. There were many more skirmishes, wars, and land grabs since the war in 1948, but I'm not going to go into that in this series. The next video will be about what is happening now in the region. Thank you for watching.